What's up, everybody? Welcome or welcome back to Closing Open Wounds with Cleisha. I am yours, truly, Cleisha. Again, welcome. Today, I want to talk to you about something a little bit more serious. In lieu of all the news about domestic violence that is currently going on right now, I wanted to answer the question that some of you have as to why someone would stay in a domestic violence relationship. Hopefully, you could imagine that it is not as easy to leave as one would think. I want to shed some light on this subject. I think it needs to be said because with all of the news and all of the court situations and the allegations and the testimonies that are going on, there is always someone that asks this, I want to say, ridiculous question. Why would they stay? What took them so long to leave? When you're not in this kind of situation, it is hard for you to understand why a person would choose to stay in an abusive relationship. I wrote down some statistics, and there is a clip of a video that I want to show you. So it's not necessarily a reaction video, but it's more educational for you. So stay tuned for that. But I wrote down some things. Why would a woman stay in an abusive relationship? Now, I say woman because statistically, women are 85%, about 85% in domestic relationships and marriages. Okay. The first thing I want to address is that we all know that love can make you do some crazy things. Love can make you stay places that are unsafe. Love can really make you fight for a relationship because you believe in that person that you fell in love with. The problem in domestic relationships and marriages, in any situation for that matter, is that most times, more often than not, you fall in love with the representative of the person. No abuser just comes right out the bat and say, I'm going to abuse you, or just comes right off the bat and hits on you and beats you and belittles you and unfortunately may even sexually abuse you. It's gradual. It's subtle. They test you. They see your endurance for pain and hurt and harm. They make you fall in love with a side story about their childhood, neglect, abuse that they have suffered on their own. And that's how they get you in. Victims of abuse are really empathic. They sympathize. They have a heart that's big and open and wants to give their abuser the love that they feel and that it's obvious that they missed. The person that suffers abuse, the victim, believes that their love can cure all. That's just some of the reasons why they stay. Now let's get back to love. When you fall in love, your hormones, your endorphins, all these chemicals, everything just a cocktail of emotions and everything that has the same effect as an addictive drug. So we fall in love, right? Now, why would someone stay? After you fall in love and the abuse has worsened and hopefully doesn't lead to death. The victim is afraid of increased violence, blackmail, retaliation. There is trauma bonding, shame, embarrassment, and more, just to name a few. Most times there are children involved. Most time the victim has no other source of income or support to support themselves. Signs of emotional abuse are when the abuser isolates you, verbally abuses you. He uses emotional manipulation. Scapegoats, enablers play a part in, the person that they are. Sometimes, more often than not, addiction plays a part in it. Uses fear to control the victim. And lastly, physical constraint. Statistics show that there are at least 3 deaths a day of women that unfortunately pass away from domestic abusers. In this video that I'm going to play for you, I just want to educate you on why would someone stay, just to further prove my point, just to give you some education, just so you can see things from their perspective. Take a look.
Let me ask you a question. If a stranger, someone you did not know, punched you and then strangled you nearly unconscious and then walked away, what would you do next? How would you react? I asked that question to jury panels during jury selection of trials sometimes, and one time I asked it, and an older woman said, right here in the front row, looked at me and said, well, I would cry. And I thought, well, shoot, that's maybe the best answer I've ever heard to that question. But after you cry, what would you do next? And I think most of us would take out our phones and we would call 911 and report the attack to police. And we would do so with the hope and the expectation that the police would go find that person that attacked us, arrest them, and prosecute them. I doubt that any of us would call the police and then when they get there, lie to them about what happened or try to conceal evidence of what happened in an attempt to protect the stranger that attacked us, because that would be irrational. That would be unreasonable. But let me ask you a couple of different questions. What if the person that attacked you was not a stranger? What if it was a member of your family? Someone you loved? Would that change how you react or how eager you are to report that to authorities? What if you believed that if anything bad happened to your attacker, you might not be able to pay your mortgage or provide for your children? What if you believed that if you cooperated with authorities, you might be killed or your children could be harmed? If any of you think about those circumstances and you think that you would react differently or you would hesitate to cooperate with authorities if they came or even call them in the first place, I doubt that you consider yourselves unintelligent or irrational. But if you put all of those factors together, you get a glimpse at the world in which victims of domestic violence live every single day. And it is precisely that, unintelligent and irrational, that victims of domestic violence are often dismissed as in our culture. Let me give you an example. How many times have we heard the question of victims of domestic violence, why didn't she just leave? What's wrong with her that she would stay with a man that abuses her? We hear that all the time, don't we? And it's an easy judgment to make because from most of our perspectives, the act of staying with someone who abuses us, who is dangerous to us, who tortures us, who physically harms us, and even trying to protect them makes no sense. It's irrational for most of our perspectives. And so we fall into the trap of judging victims. I've been guilty of it myself. I remember fairly early in my career, I had a case where a guy set his wife on fire. And I was prosecuting that case, and I met with the victim months after the attack. She was horribly, permanently injured over nothing because she spent money without his permission, and he got mad. And when I met with this victim, still scarred and bandaged, she begged me to drop charges, to not prosecute her husband who had almost killed her. And she explained to me that throughout their marriage, he had been violent, he had been abusive, but then she explained it had never been this bad, obviously. And now that he had hurt her this bad, she explained that now he gets it. Now he understands, and he has apologized, and he assures me that this will never happen again. And so she would like me to go ahead and let him go and drop charges. And as I met with this woman, I found myself getting angry, is really the only word that applies. But not angry at the guy that set his wife on fire. Angry at the victim. Because from where I sat, her choices and her behavior were irrational. It seemed crazy to me. Frankly, it seemed stupid to me. Now, an important point is I didn't need her cooperation to go forward on that case. As a prosecutor, I can go wherever the facts and evidence allow me to go. I don't need a victim's cooperation to prosecute a domestic violence case any more, most of the time, than I need a victim's cooperation to prosecute a murder. I've been doing this job 17 years. I still have never had the murder case where the victim of murder came into court and testified for me about what happened. I don't need it on those cases, and most of the time, I don't need it on a domestic violence case. There's lots of ways to do it. That's just a choice that I have to make. But in this case, I made the wrong choice because I judged the victim. I was so frustrated with her behavior. And you know what I did with that guy that set his wife on fire? I gave him probation. I had the ability to fight with everything I had to put that man in prison, to physically incapacitate him, to separate him from that victim, and to change her circumstances and give her a shot to get away and get safe. But instead what I did was I sent him right back into that home and right back into that relationship because I was frustrated with her. And it was the wrong decision, and I knew it immediately. And I started thinking really about what led me to make that wrong decision. And I realized very quickly that the mistake I made was substituting my own perspective for that of the domestic violence victim. Because like I said, from my perspective, her choices, her actions made no sense. But when I thought about it from her perspective, it changed everything. So let's look at that question of why doesn't she just leave, but not from our own perspective in the cheap seats as people who are not in abusive relationships, but from the perspective of a woman who is in an abusive relationship. And I say woman and she and her because statistically, the vast majority of domestic violence victims are women and the vast majority of perpetrators are men. So as we talk about this, I'm going to generalize.
Hopefully after watching that video, that short clip, I have enlightened you to understand why someone would stay in an abusive relationship. It's not that they would want to, but sometimes things can get worse and there are children and other people that are involved. So please refrain from ever asking that question, that insensitive question as to why someone, anyone, would continue to stay even years in an abusive relationship. We gotta do better. It's not that simple. Unless you have been in an abusive relationship, you have no idea what it feels like and what one has to do to survive. That's what these people are doing. That's what these women are doing. They are trying their best to survive. Thinking and believing that their love can change them is the only mistake that they are making. They're empathic, they think about others, and they put their own lives at risk just for the safety of their lives and their families. So please, can we not be insensitive anymore? Can we not ask these questions, these ridiculous questions? But can we help them? in any way necessary. If you indeed are a victim of domestic violence, I am praying for you. I am praying that you find the strength and the courage to walk away from your abuser safely, securely. Okay. I'm praying for you all. And for everyone else, I hope and I do pray that this has enlightened you. Okay. Let us not ask that ridiculous question anymore. Let's be more sensitive to our neighbors. Until next time, everyone, take care.